Thank you to all my channel members, including my fan appreciation level members and my contributor level members, for helping support the YouTube channel. Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book Magelight by Kacey Ezell. This is a new romantic fantasy book that Kacey Ezell's written for Baen Books, and I had been interested by the cover, but also Kacey had reached out to me and said, hey, just want to put this book on your radar, and I looked at the write-up and I thought, interesting, it looks interesting. As many of you know, I'm a big fantasy reader. I love reading fantasy. And also, I really enjoy a lot of romantic subplots in books. I really connect with a lot of romance storylines and really root for characters and cheer for characters. I'm not the biggest fan of romantasy books. I've read like one straight up romantasy and then a couple books that were romantasy in all but name, and I didn't love them. And so I was, hesitant when I picked this book up. And when I heard Kacey Ezell talk about the pitch for the book, which is basically that there's, one woman and there's three men that end up getting bonded to her, and that causes them to fall in love with her, I was like, interesting. I don't know how well I'm going to react to that, but I was like, I'm willing to give it a shot. And I was enjoying the book. I actually really thought it was delightful, a fun read. Obviously, there's some worldview stuff that I really didn't appreciate as much in the book, but it was a fun romance. The first thing I'll say is that for being a romantasy or romantic fantasy, I should say. Tangent. I should say that the author, she doesn't categorize it as romantasy herself. She calls it romantic fantasy because, in her words, it's not like the romance isn't necessarily driving the plot quite as much. I would say that the plot, even though there is a plot, it's servicing the romance. So I would say that it's on the ledge of being like romantasy or just fantasy romance. If you categorize it as either, I would really be willing to categorize it as either. I see the arguments for both, so it kind of would fit into whatever category you're going there. Anyway, the romance, when I heard about that, I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to read all this stuff I don't want to read about. And surprisingly, the book is very appropriate. You're not reading explicit scenes here. There's no sex scenes. I was very happy about that. There are certainly characters thinking about wanting to do stuff with other characters, and there's characters who are falling in love and really attracted to other characters, but there's no explicit scenes. And so I was very surprised that Kacey Ezell was able to thread this needle in such a way. I thought that Kacey did a pretty good job with that. And so that was a delightful part of the book. The book has really long chapters. There are 10 chapters in this 360-page book. The average chapter is like 35 pages. And so you read a single chapter and you're like, man, I just read a lot just now. So because of that, the book actually kind of read kind of quickly. The book paces pretty fast. The book's going along. The basic plot of the book. I've talked about the romance. Let's talk about the actual plot. So the plot is that there's this girl, this young woman, I should say, who has just She has just graduated, and she ends up running away from this school to try to go home. And she's attacked by marauders, so she hires this band of 3 men, a warrior, a forester, and a thief. And the 3 of them are going to escort her back to her home to try to protect her from these bandits that have been attacking her. And so she hires them to bring her back home. On the way home, her magical powers increase, and she learns these new things. The men that she accidentally bonds learn some magical stuff too as well. And then there's a whole plot line at the end of the book about her returning home and home being not the place she thought it was going to be. And so there is kind of a fantasy background to it. And if you're a fan of D&D, you will see a lot of D&D inspired elements in this story. The journey that the characters are taking, very D&D inspired. There's even some moments where there's basically side quests where the character's like, all right, let's go look at, see what's in this cave. Oh, let's go look and see what's in this little town. It's like, why are we going to the town? It doesn't matter. Let's go see what's in the town. And it was like, okay, we're doing some side quests here. And then also, I think fans of Lit RPG will be enjoying this because there's an you're not reading like in traditional lit RPG where you're reading about the power-ups and the power abilities as much, but characters are leveling up their abilities as you're reading the book, and you're seeing them be able to do more and more with their powers. And so I think it's got elements that, you know, D&D fans, lit RPG fans, and of course romance fans. The romance is permeating every chapter, every character's viewpoint, and surprisingly, a significant portion of the book is from the gentleman's perspective. I expected almost all the book to be from our main character, Elise. I thought the whole book would be from her perspective, and in reality, most of the perspective is from the three men, which I think makes the book really interesting and dynamic. You have Ramek the warrior, you have Dane the forester, and then you have Vil, who is the thief. Personally, I really enjoyed Dane's perspective the most. He had the character arc that not only was I most fascinated by, but also he was the one I wanted Elise to end up with. And Ramek and Vil were interesting, and I really enjoyed their plot lines, but I also wasn't exactly rooting for them because I didn't like their personalities as much. But then again, part of it was because I wanted one of them to end up with the main character, and so I was kind of rooting for him. And that's not exactly the direction that Kacey Ezell is wanting you to go with this. She could have gone in a way different direction, though. I will say that she could have gone in a way different direction, but it was an enjoyable read. As I said, it's a fast read, and by the way, this has cover art by Sam R. Kennedy. I think it's pretty good, but it's a very enjoyable read. It reads like a standalone with sequel potential. There is clearly another story that Kacey could easily tell that is set up at the end in the epilogue, but it also, if this just ends up being a standalone, it also would work very well. So I would recommend that, especially if you like romance, if you like fantasy, if you are willing to try romantic fantasy, and then also if you enjoy kind of like those lit RPG and D&D type storylines, I think you'll enjoy this book. Now, this isn't a top book of the year or anything for me. I think it's a good book. It could have been great. I think the few things that kept it from greatness are a little bit more focus on the plot. I think it did need a more complex plot and a little bigger story for it to tell. I think that it also needed, there's some characters from the beginning of the book that I think really should have shown up towards the end, and because they didn't, I feel like the book is kind of lacking a little bit there. And then I would say one of the other things this book could have had is a little bit more, maybe more fantasy creatures or fantasy elements besides just magic, and maybe that's just the world that, you know, she doesn't want to do that. She just wants humans in this world. But I feel like it could have had a little bit more complex to the world building. That being said, it's a fun book. You're not reading it for the world building. You're reading it for the romantic tension with the three men and the woman. So, and of course, by the way, I should specify, the three men are not attracted to each other. The three men are good brothers. They're friends. I did particularly love the opening of the book, where you see the perspective of each of the three men, and you see them basically come to terms with where they are in life and decide to work together as a group. They decide to become basically like mercenaries working together. I really enjoyed that part of the book. I really enjoyed that opening. So that's my thought on Magelight by Kacey Ezell. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. It was enjoyable. Could have been better, but it was very enjoyable. And I certainly liked it way more than the other romantasy books that I've read. So if you've read Magelight, let me know what you thought of it and what romantasy books do you recommend. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.